This truck was disguised as transporting pig feed. It intended to pass through the rigorous inspection at a U.S. border checkpoint. A long line of vehicles was jammed at the entry point. Each driver awaited questioning one by one. The accomplices in the truck nervously observed their surroundings. The police soon approached their vehicle in sequence. The driver became so anxious that sweat covered his forehead. He feared their cover would be blown. The officer circled the vehicle slowly. He suddenly noticed the driver's injured right hand. Then he asked him to wait a moment. Meanwhile, a hacker monitoring remotely discovered something concerning. The police were scanning their truck with optical character recognition technology. Immediately, the hacker contacted the checkpoint. He claimed the FBI satellite spotted a suspicious vehicle attempting to cross the Tijuana border. At that moment, Mark, the driver's partner, slammed on the gas pedal, creating chaos to divert attention. Their female accomplice, disguised as a police officer, instantly activated her siren. She rushed forward, pretending to subdue Mark. She tackled him firmly onto the ground, preventing other officers from opening fire. This clever trick of misdirection successfully distracted all the police at the scene. Their third partner took the opportunity to open the gate, allowing the truck to slip away unnoticed. The seamless teamwork among the four successfully smuggled drugs worth $50 million into U.S. territory. However, they were not actually drug traffickers. Instead, they were a special investigation team established by federal authorities. But why would federal agents help drug traffickers smuggle narcotics? To understand this, we must go back several days earlier. In broad daylight, an agent from the Department of Homeland Security was being pursued by criminals. As soon as he noticed two strong men following him closely, he immediately started running. He sprinted wildly into a nearby busy market. Weaving quickly through chaotic streets, he grabbed an electric scooter from a passerby and hurled it at his pursuers. After finally shaking them off, he stepped onto the main road only to be ambushed and killed by a bearded man approaching from the front. At the same time, Los Angeles detective Mark Meacham, who was working undercover in prison, had an altercation with fellow inmates during recreation time. The conflict stirred up dust everywhere until prison guards intervened and dragged both men away. Hearing this, the superior officer Lambert rushed in. Mark was eager to explain, saying he was close to obtaining critical information. However, Lambert interrupted him coldly, informing Mark that his assignment was officially terminated. Mark felt devastated. He had already spent 9 months in this miserable place and found it impossible to accept giving up now. Lambert cut off his complaints, explaining that Mark was urgently needed for a newly formed federal special task force in Los Angeles. The reason for this sudden recall was the assassination of the Homeland Security agent in public. Higher authorities had quickly assembled a secret special investigative team composed of undercover officers from various law enforcement agencies. Aside from Mark, FBI agent Orger, currently undercover in Koreatown, also received instructions from his superiors. Only minutes earlier, he had been hanging suspended from a beam. Fortunately, a sympathetic cleaning lady pushed a metal bucket near him. Orger quickly stepped onto the bucket and untied his hands. Swinging a baseball bat, he knocked out the 2 guards. Only then could he make contact with headquarters. Soon after, all the recruited agents assembled. Special Task Force leader Nathan stood before the group. He had served 22 years in the FBI and had previously led 5 special task forces. All recruits today were elite talents from their respective departments. First, Nathan introduced his deputy Damon Drew from the Department of Homeland Security's Intelligence Analysis Office. Next was Agent Orger, with 14 years of experience and extensive undercover operations. Beside him stood FBI Agent Hegigo, an expert on domestic and international terrorism threats. To Hegigo's left was Wenmei from the FBI, highly skilled in cyber investigations, fraud, and computer hacking. Behind them stood Luke, a muscular officer from the LAPD with 18 years experience in gang and narcotics divisions, specializing in firearms gangs and drug-related crime. Finally, Nathan introduced Mark, our protagonist, from the LAPD Homicide Division, who had previously collaborated with Nathan. With introductions complete, it was time to explain the specific mission. Yesterday, at precisely 8:31 a.m., Homeland Security Customs Agent Dutton was fatally shot at close range through the heart. Nearby shops and ATMs across the street all had surveillance cameras, yet none captured clear footage of the shooter. Based solely on eyewitness descriptions, the suspect had dark skin and stood around 1 meter 80 centimeters tall. Typically, the murder of an ordinary agent would not prompt such a special task force. However, 14 days earlier, a mysterious deposit of $200,000 appeared suddenly in Dutton's account. Nathan's team attempted to trace the transaction but discovered the records had been concealed. At the Customs and Border Protection Agency, Dutton's responsibility was monitoring the border activities of the New Kings cartel in Tijuana and operations at the port of Long Beach. Luke had heard of the cartel. Rebuilt in 2009 from remnants of the dismantled Los Mata Zetas, it specialized in paid assassinations, targeting primarily journalists, politicians, and police officers. In short, this case was shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. Therefore, the operation required complete secrecy, even from family and colleagues. They had limited time to determine why Dutton had been murdered, why he had received money, and how it related to his official duties at Customs and Border Protection. After the meeting, Mark casually chatted with Orger, unaware of his own infamous reputation. Orger had heard Mark abandoned his fiancée Melinda 2 weeks before their wedding and even slept with her younger sister Rachel. Mark simply shrugged and said, "Listen, I just want you to know something, okay? Rachel looks a lot like her sister in the morning." Orger was speechless upon hearing such nonsense. Meanwhile, Nathan and Wenmai went to visit Dutton's widow, hoping to gather information about the bribe. Upon arriving at Dutton's residence, they found his brother-in-law present as well. Dutton's wife insisted emotionally that her husband could never commit any criminal acts. She angrily declared if Nathan continued defaming Dutton, they would sue him. Their 9-year-old son overheard his mother becoming upset and sobbed uncontrollably on his bed. Seeing this, the brother-in-law bluntly expelled Nathan and Wenmei from the house. Meanwhile, the other 4 agents visited Dutton's workplace to speak with his colleagues. Through conversations, they learned Dutton was well-liked and dedicated to his job. His monitoring of the cartel's activities at the border and port yielded crucial intelligence. Every field assignment was meticulously documented in his reports. Only one old man named Jim had always predicted trouble for Dutton. Co-workers recalled that Dutton and Jim often teamed up together. Jim even spent several weekends at Dutton's vacation cabin fishing and skiing. Regarding the unexplained money in Dutton's account, it originated from Granillo Bank in Guadalajara, a bank with direct ties to the New Kings cartel. Dutton's colleagues found it illogical for him to choose such a conspicuous bank if he truly intended to hide illicit funds. After concluding their inquiries, the Homeland Security agents unanimously agreed to investigate Jim further. In the meantime, Higigo and Wenmei carefully reviewed the shooting video footage. They discovered a truck with mirrors positioned in a way that reflected the killer's clear image onto the ATM's camera nearby. Immediately, Wenmei ran facial recognition across all U.S. databases. Eventually, they identified the suspect as Cesar Murillo. Without delay, the team rushed to Murillo's residence. Mark led a group to assault from the front, while Orger and Higigo approached from the rear. As Mark banged on the door, someone immediately fired shots from inside. Mark yelled out, "I'm hit officer down, feigning severe injury to lure the enemy closer." Once shadows approached the door, they stormed inside swiftly. The suspects instinctively fled toward the back door, only to be subdued by Orger's team. However, they did not capture Cesar, but rather a woman with a large afro hairstyle and a man with tattoos on his neck. Despite interrogation, both remained defiantly silent. Orger explained the New Kings cartel brutally punished informants by sealing them inside garlic barrels. Hence, these criminals would rather die than talk. Although fingerprint evidence was collected from the apartment, it dated back several months and yielded no useful clues. Wenmei thoroughly investigated all of Dutton's property records, yet found no indication that he or his wife owned any vacation home or additional property aside from their Belmont Heights residence. Nathan reviewed interview transcripts from the earlier meeting with Dutton's colleagues. He noticed a man named Morris had mentioned Granillo Bank in Guadalajara, a detail never publicly disclosed. Morris could only have known this specific information if Dutton had told him directly. Realizing this, Mark and his team immediately rushed to Morris's residence. Just as they approached his home, they saw Morris attempting to flee. Mark and Orger quickly stepped on the gas pedal and pursued him, capturing Morris after a brief chase. Morris foolishly tried to escape by car, completely underestimating who was chasing him. He was swiftly apprehended and brought back to FBI headquarters for questioning. Mark and Orger jointly interrogated him, and within minutes, Morris broke down. He admitted deliberately fabricating the vacation cabin story to misdirect suspicion onto Jim. Mark and Orger quickly pressured Morris further. They confronted him saying, "We know you received those bribes because we have your fingerprints on his keyboard. We know you tried to frame Dutton because he had discovered your activities. Moreover, we traced your sister's bank records to Indio, California. That makes her an accessory to a federal crime facing 15 years imprisonment in Victorville. Morris immediately surrendered to protect his younger sister. He confessed the cartel was plotting to manipulate Customs and Homeland Security to vacate a facility for an unhindered operation. Dutton had uncovered Morris's collusion with the cartel, resulting in his assassination by the cartel's hitman. Morris claimed he did not know the exact time, location, or specifics of the deal. However, agents found disposable phones and work phones in Morris's car. They handed the devices over to Hegigo and the computer analysis team to examine Morris's contacts and call logs. Afterward, Mark and Wenmei revisited Dutton's home. They informed his family that Dutton was actually a hero who courageously stood against drug traffickers. Later that evening, Orger reviewed the special team members' files, intending to familiarize himself with his new colleagues. He learned that Deputy Drew had tragically lost his 9-year-old son in a drunk driving accident. At that moment, Orger spotted a familiar-looking woman passing by. He hurriedly shut down his computer before finishing Mark's profile to follow her. Therefore, he remained unaware of Mark's deteriorating tumor, or that Homeland Security had previously reported to Nathan, accusing Orger of developing a drug addiction during his undercover assignments. Nathan had indeed assembled outstanding individuals, but they all shared troubled pasts and were willing to pursue success at any cost. Soon after, decrypted phone data arrived, revealing Morris's deception. Although he had claimed the timing wasn't set, he had already secretly ordered all Customs and Border Patrol units to avoid Pier 31 at the harbor. Hearing this, the special team immediately rushed to the location. Upon arrival, they engaged the cartel members in a fierce gunfight. Amid the chaos, some traffickers managed to escape by vehicle. Just then, Caesar Dutton's killer approached Orger from behind cover. Mark spotted the danger and quickly shot Caesar dead, saving Orger's life. As the team prepared to inspect the cargo containers, Hegigo suddenly shouted for everyone to retreat. He swiftly took out a detector which showed dangerously high radiation levels. Hegigo explained the containers held gamma-emitting fissile material, exposing them to radiation levels of 5,000 millisieverts. This lost fissile material was capable of triggering a Chernobyl-level nuclear disaster in Los Angeles. In other words, someone was using the drug cartel to smuggle radioactive material into the United States. 2 cartel members had been arrested during the operation, and the team awaited full interrogation reports once the port police authorized it. Additionally, Mark had spoken to the Commercial Crime Division, who found a stolen Border Patrol vehicle abandoned about 14 kilometers northeast of the Compton port. Nathan remembered seeing this vehicle fleeing earlier, carrying 4 white males. Now the special team's priority was reviewing port surveillance footage from recent days and thoroughly questioning all port workers and customs officials to identify anyone suspicious. Nathan ordered the forensic team to comprehensively inspect the stolen vehicle for hair fibers, fingerprints, DNA, nuclear residues, soil traces, and biological material. Orger then interrupted, sharing important information. 2 years earlier, while undercover as a border smuggler, he had worked closely with a New King's deputy named Lopez. Last night, Orger re-established contact with one of Lopez's smugglers in Huntington Park. Lopez was central to the cartel's infrastructure and would certainly know who received the radioactive material. Orger could arrange a meeting. Concerned about Orger's safety, Nathan instructed Mark to accompany him. On the way, Orger fabricated a fake identity and backstory explaining how they had met. Arriving in Huntington Park, a young boy approached confirming Orger's identity and directed them to wait in the garage. Soon after, Lopez appeared surrounded by heavily armed men. Orger claimed he had been betrayed by his own crew, nearly getting caught by authorities. Now that things had calmed down, he wanted to resume smuggling operations. Lopez suddenly aimed his gun suspiciously at Mark, the unfamiliar face. Fortunately, Mark still had the prison stamp from his recent 9-month undercover assignment, making his false identity credible even under fingerprint scrutiny. Seeing this, Lopez lowered his weapon. Orger quickly elaborated, claiming a failed drug deal in Michigan left him desperately needing cash. Having heard Lopez was under scrutiny, he offered to take on high-risk shipments. Lopez was tempted by this proposal, but first needed to test their reliability. He had a truckload of contraband arriving from Rosarito, but worried border security would seize it due to recent cartel troubles. If Orger successfully resolved this issue, Lopez promised to involve him further. Achieving this wouldn't be easy. Allowing Border Patrol to clear the shipment would arouse suspicion, since a corrupt officer within the agency had already verified Mark's fake identity. Therefore, they had to act exactly like genuine traffickers to smuggle the shipment safely across the border. Luke and Mark drove an empty livestock truck, claiming they intended to enter Mexico for pork trade. Orger and Hegigo followed in a smaller vehicle. The four met at a foul-smelling pig farm, loading pre-arranged contraband crates into the truck. They quickly changed license plates. While attaching the trailer, Luke accidentally injured his hand, quickly wrapping it in clothing. They drove the truck toward a nearby gas station, where a corrupt policeman appeared. Orger previously had dealings with this officer and knew his greedy nature. He handed him a bag of candy mixed with cash, convincing the officer to leave them alone. Taking the policeman's vehicle, Orger followed closely behind the truck, heading towards the U.S. border checkpoint. A large number of vehicles awaited inspection. Officers soon approached the truck, driven by Luke, whose nervousness caused sweat to drip down his face. While answering routine questions, the officer noticed Luke's injured right hand, suddenly requesting he wait. Monitoring remotely, Wenmei realized the border police were scanning Luke's truck with optical character recognition. Mark instantly sensed trouble and signaled to create a diversion. Nathan quickly contacted the checkpoint, reporting that FBI satellites had detected a suspicious vehicle crossing at Tijuana. Mark then recklessly drove around, creating chaos. Orger activated police sirens, posing as law enforcement, tackling Mark to prevent officers from shooting. Their clever diversion succeeded perfectly, distracting all officers. Taking advantage, Hegigo opened the gates, allowing the truck to pass unnoticed. He then used official credentials to release Mark from detention. The four agents parked the truck at a secure location and opened it, discovering smelly pig feed bags, hiding sealed packets of narcotics worth approximately $50 million. Though deeply troubled by smuggling such a dangerous amount onto American streets, they had no choice but to deliver the shipment to Lopez to further investigate the radioactive materials. Orger, feeling conflicted, secretly kept aside 1 kilogram of narcotics, intending to destroy it rather than risk it reaching addicts. Mark skeptically watched Orger conceal the package, unsure if he genuinely intended disposal. Later that evening, they handed the cargo over to Lopez, discreetly asking him about rumors the new kings were dealing with Chinese smugglers and Europeans. Lopez flatly denied any Chinese involvement, revealing instead their boss spoke a Russian-related language. Before Orger could probe further, a sudden explosion engulfed the vehicle ahead. Lopez, severely injured by shrapnel, gasped out a name in his final moments: Valchek. The story now moves back to 2008. In Minsk, Belarus, a defense ministry employee named Boris received an unexpected visit from his younger brother Anton, who arrived covered in blood. Anton explained that an American from Hamdir Corporation in Harrisford had approached him. The American represented a large food company interested in buying accurate data about Belarus's agricultural output and stability of recent harvests. Although Anton took their money, he never intended to provide real figures, instead sending outdated records from 2005. Unfortunately, the American quickly discovered the deception, demanding a personal meeting with Boris. Soon after, Boris and Anton met the American named Dennis. Dennis was aware of Boris's position under Pavel Kostenko at the Ministry of Defense. He demanded access to all email correspondence between Kostenko and the Kremlin over the past 4 months. Dennis threatened if Boris refused, Anton might suffer a deadly fall down a stairwell. Desperate to save his brother, Boris secretly accessed Kostenko's computer when he stepped out, swiftly copying all relevant emails. Later at home, Anton apologized deeply to his brother for involving him in such danger. After speaking, Anton headed to the bathroom, but after waiting a long time, Boris checked on him only to find his brother already dead. That night, as Dennis returned home, he saw Boris exiting his apartment building. Boris handed him a hard drive, warning Dennis never to return. Dennis rushed upstairs, eager to review the emails. Preparing dinner, Dennis turned on his toaster oven, triggering a sudden massive explosion. Boris watched from afar as fire engulfed Dennis's apartment. Could this man, Valchek, mentioned by Lopez, actually be Boris? Returning to the present, Lopez and his bodyguard had both died in the explosion the previous night. Investigators determined the device was standard C4 explosive wired directly into the ignition switch of Lopez's Range Rover. Wenmei checked Lopez's garage logs, but found only outdated paper records without electronic backups. Additionally, Wenmei traced the surname Valchek to Belarusian origins. Since the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1989, Belarus had become Russia's closest satellite ally, openly supporting recent aggression in Eastern Europe. causing sharp criticism from the United States and NATO allies. Mark recalled his cellmate from his previous undercover assignment at Palmdale Prison, a Belarusian named Timur Novikov, nicknamed Ati. Ati had extensive ties to Belarusian organized crime in Los Angeles, including theft, drugs, and weapons. If a Belarusian was involved, Ati might know his identity. Mark suggested going back undercover at Palmdale Prison. Orger strongly opposed the plan because prisoners rarely believed transferred inmates and would quickly grow suspicious. However, Mark was determined, and Nathan immediately began making arrangements. Unfortunately, the prison warden vehemently opposed the idea, saying Detective Meacham undercover in Palmdale had caused him enormous stress and trouble. Nathan reconsidered proposing an alternate plan. Soon after Adi was informed, he had an urgent legal appeal hearing in Fullerton. Confused, Adi was placed in a prisoner transport van and surprised to see Mark already waiting inside. Mark had previously saved Adi from danger, but Adi still deeply mistrusted him. Adi tested Mark's prison knowledge, but Mark cleverly avoided any traps confirming his identity. As the transport continued, Luke remotely activated a device, blowing out a tire, causing the van to crash. Adi saw this as a chance to escape, signaling Mark. When Luke and Orger approached, Mark quickly subdued them, firing a warning shot beside Luke's head to maintain realism. After restraining the guards, they fled to a nearby rest area, stealing work uniforms. Still excited, Adi bragged about his influential uncle who could help them flee America, but first needed a cell phone to contact him. Hearing approaching workers, they quickly left, stealing a cell phone from a distracted businessman inside a cafe. Mark cleverly spilled coffee on the man, sending him to the bathroom, and locked him inside by breaking the door handle. Adi quickly arranged a meeting with his uncle, agreeing on a location. Pretending to discard the phone in a trash bin, Mark secretly kept it switched on, enabling tracking. Elsewhere, Luke and Orger freed themselves, with Luke annoyed by Mark nearly shooting him, especially since today was Luke's 40th birthday. Returning to headquarters, they updated Nathan, who promised to wait for Mark's signal. Suddenly, a district attorney arrived, angered by Nathan allowing an escaped convict to roam free, endangering public safety. Nathan responded forcefully, stating he required no lectures about his investigation methods. Drew then confronted the district attorney, sharply accusing him of repeatedly meddling in their cases, seeking political gains to run for governor. Drew asserted fiercely this wasn't politics, but their passion, demanding the attorney to leave immediately. Embarrassed and enraged, the district attorney stormed out, threatening consequences. Night fell with no contact from Mark. Meanwhile, Mark sat anxiously in Adi's uncle's car, listening as two men argued loudly in Russian. Afterward, Adi explained they were heading to his uncle Mikhail's nightclub in Burbank. Upon arrival at the Belarusian nightclub, the uncle reluctantly greeted Ati, clearly displeased by his appearance. While the two argued, Mark excused himself to the restroom, quickly contacting Orger. With little time, he simply informed Orger about the stolen phone, urging immediate tracking before hurriedly flushing the toilet for noise and hanging up. Orger quickly informed Nathan, asking if backup was required. Nathan considered briefly, then approved discreet monitoring without direct intervention. Exiting the restroom, Mark noticed the men still arguing at the door, so he discreetly slipped backstage to investigate. Entering a secluded room, he discovered maps, photographs, and documents about the Los Angeles port area pinned to the walls. Suddenly, a man in a hat discovered Mark, followed quickly by Adi's uncle, holding a gun to Mark's head. The hat-wearing man insisted Mark had seen too much and must be eliminated immediately. Adi's uncle forcibly led Mark down a corridor while the other man tore down the evidence. Spotting a broken lamp and a lighter, the man ignited the pile of documents before leaving, causing a large fire. Outside, Ati pleaded desperately for his uncle not to kill Mark, but to no avail. Mark bravely accepted his fate, prepared to die honorably. Ati suddenly noticed a flame behind the door, and an instant later, a massive explosion erupted. In the confusion, Mark seized the uncle's gun, fleeing the nightclub just as Nathan's backup team arrived. Mark urgently warned them the suspects inside were armed, leading to an intense firefight. Amid the chaos, Adi was mistakenly shot by Orger. Luke attempted to reposition himself, but his weapon jammed, allowing Adi's uncle to shoot at him. Mark immediately checked Luke's condition, relieved to find the bullet had missed. Luke initially smiled, grateful for survival, but his expression froze upon noticing Deputy Drew gravely injured nearby, his condition unknown. The latest episode of Countdown concludes with Drew critically wounded and his condition uncertain. This shocking turn of events leaves the team shaken and deeply worried about their colleague. Meanwhile, the intense shootout at the nightclub results in the apprehension of several suspects, providing investigators with valuable leads to unravel the cartel's broader conspiracy involving radioactive fissile materials. Despite the operation's success, Mark remains troubled knowing that Ati's death was an unfortunate casualty resulting from their own crossfire. Haunted by regret, Mark reflects on the complexity of undercover operations and their high personal costs. Nathan urgently orders his team to thoroughly analyze the recovered evidence, hoping to identify key players behind the nuclear smuggling plot. With Lopez dead and the cartel's operations compromised, investigators shift their focus to tracking Valchek, whose true identity remains elusive. Wenmei digs deeper into Belarusian connections, uncovering more links between Valchek and past incidents involving Eastern European organized crime networks. Mark returns to headquarters emotionally drained by recent events. He privately contemplates his deteriorating health condition, realizing his remaining time may be limited. Orger, noticing Mark's exhaustion, attempts to provide moral support, yet remains unaware of the underlying severity of Mark's illness. Nathan calls a special team meeting emphasizing urgency in stopping the radioactive threat looming over Los Angeles. He reminds everyone their efforts have already prevented an unimaginable disaster, yet the mission is far from complete. Elsewhere, Valchek, having narrowly escaped capture, plans his next moves carefully. He realizes his cover is partially blown, but remains confident he can still execute his plan to destabilize America through nuclear terror. Federal authorities now have Valchek clearly in their sights, setting the stage for an intense pursuit. The Special Task Force, despite setbacks and personal struggles, remains united and determined to see justice served and disaster averted. This marks the end of the detailed review of the latest episode of Countdown. If you enjoyed this review, please like, subscribe, and follow for timely updates. Your encouragement motivates us to keep producing detailed reviews for exciting episodes. In the aftermath of the fierce gunfight, the Special Task Force faced the harsh reality of their dangerous mission. Drew was rushed to the hospital with critical injuries, leaving his teammates in silent despair. Mark, deeply affected by recent events, silently reflected on the heavy price of duty and sacrifice. Nathan addressed the team, reminding them their actions successfully prevented a catastrophic nuclear disaster, yet the fight against threats like Valchek and the cartel would never end. Although the special investigation faced profound losses, their courage and determination remained unbroken. The team quietly regrouped, preparing themselves mentally and emotionally for future battles, understanding their work safeguarded countless innocent lives. As dawn broke over Los Angeles, the city, unaware of the heroes silently protecting it, continued its busy routine. Meanwhile, hidden from view, the relentless guardians continued their endless countdown against threats in a world where danger never sleeps.